An interesting night on the international football scene. You do get them every once in a while. We're going to bring you updates on Joan Garcia, Martin Zubimendi, Martin Ødegaard, and more. Plus, it's the boss's birthday. Happy birthday, Mikel Arteta. Will bring you all of that and more on today's episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, how are we doing? Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the show. Hope you're all good. Hope you're all keeping well. Hope you're all surviving the international break. We don't even have a game this weekend, Arsenal, which is really, really frustrating, isn't it? Obviously, there's some FA Cup games going on. The Gunners not involved in that competition anymore, having crashed out early on this season. So, yeah, it's another strange kind of weekend coming up. There isn't any match to build up towards. Obviously, we've got that game against Fulham, not a million miles away. And then, of course, Everton, Real Madrid coming up. The two legs against them are going to be huge, aren't they? So plenty of football to come, just a little bit further down the line. So for now, we're having to make do. And as I said right there in the intro, it's not often these days that I look at the kind of international round and I think, oh, that was interesting, or that was pretty cool. That was good to watch. It's not that I disrespect international football, right? I actually think international tournament football is still up there with the very best. Like, is it the same standard as the UEFA Champions League in terms of the quality on show? No, I don't think it is. But I think in terms of the excitement, the drama that you get in tournament football, I think it's fantastic. The problem is the build up to the tournaments. Has the Nations League kind of gone some way in just improving things a little bit, giving us some more games with something to ride on? Maybe. But some of these qualifiers are dire, aren't they? Unless you're a fan of South American football. Argentina played Brazil last night, 4-1 win for the Argentines. Gabriel Magalhaes, of course, not involved. He was suspended for that game and returned from international duty a little bit early as a result, which is a good thing for us. But it's a fixture, isn't it, that just never disappoints. The atmosphere, the vibe, the color, all of it. It's just brilliant. The tensions, there's always a bit of sort of argy-bargy between the two sides. It often spills over. There's often a little bit of needle. And we saw all of that, plus goals galore, heavy challenges, cracking atmosphere, as I've mentioned. You name it, that fixture has it. And I did think about staying up to watch the game. I did. I seriously considered it. And I just got so tired by about 10 p.m. That's the old man in me now, the dad in me, if you like. I just couldn't do it. And I ended up going to bed, and I woke up this morning, and I'm not going to sit there and say that I watched all the 90 back. I didn't. I sort of skimmed through it. But yeah, it seemed like a really good watch, really cracking game. I might have watched the full 90 if I hadn't woken up to the score. I might have been tempted to just avoid everything and sit and watch it from start to finish. But it wasn't even me that checked the score. I purposely didn't look at my phone, but my little boy came in the room. He'd obviously been on his Nintendo, and he'd seen something come up on YouTube. He'd watched the highlights, and he'd come in and he said, Dad, Argentina beat Brazil by 4-1. And I thought, oh, well, there's no point in watching that from the start then. But anyway, on today's show, we are going to talk Arsenal, I promise. Let me just say a few hellos, because there's plenty of you with us at the moment. We've got Aaron, we've got Junior, we've got Derek, who says, G'day from Australia, buddy. Over soon. Any chance of a ticket? Let me know for what game, mate. I don't know of any now, so I can't promise you a ticket. But if I hear of any spares, for sure, I'll get in touch. So maybe drop me a DM on one of the social media platforms, either Instagram. I think you can find me at Harry_Symeou, or on X, you can find me at Harry Symeou. Just drop me a DM so that I've got a direct contact back to you. And if I hear of one, let me know what game it is. Then I promise I'll let you know. But I can't guarantee anything because I don't have tickets just to hand out. I wish I did, but I don't, unfortunately. Right. Let's dive into today's stories then. Let's start with the boss's birthday. Happy birthday, Mikel Arteta. Now, I can already predict what the response to this segment and what the response to some of the posts we've seen on social media from some of the naysayers and the haters is going to be, right? There's going to be people out there that go, why are we celebrating Mikel Arteta's birthday? He's only won one FA Cup, blah, 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 blah. Look, happy birthday to the boss. I think overall he's done a fantastic job. Overall, he's taken Arsenal in the right direction. And overall, I'm happy with what he's done so far. Do we need more? Yes. Are we going to get that in the next year or two? Hopefully. Has this season been underwhelming? Yes. Has that been down to Mikel Arteta solely? No. So I think it's really, really important that you're able to kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture when assessing this season. And I think if you are one of those people that blames it all on Mikel Arteta and feels that he is the sole reason why Arsenal aren't going to win the Premier League title this year, then I think your analysis is flawed. I think your analysis, to be quite frank, is crap. So yeah, I do want to just get that out of the way because, I think when you talk about zooming out, there's no better example than zooming out and looking at Mikel Arteta's record as Gunners boss overall. The quickest Arsenal manager to reach 100 Premier League wins and the man with the most wins in his first 200 games in charge in the club's history. So whether you think he's good enough or not, whether you want to pin some of the blame on him or not, you can't deny that his record is pretty good. Yes, okay, he hasn't won a Premier League title, he hasn't won a Champions League, and he's won just the one FA Cup. And that will be used as a stick to beat him with. But Jurgen Klopp won just the one Premier League. I know he won other things as well. But when Jurgen Klopp only won one Premier League, people used to say, well, it's because he was up against this formidable, incredible Manchester City side. And for 2 of the 3 years in which we've hoped to win the Premier League and haven't, that Manchester City side were the ones standing in our way. So just a little bit of context and a little bit of calmness and rationale applied to the analysis around the Arsenal boss. But happy birthday to him. I think he's 43 years of age. Should we talk our captain, Martin Ødegaard? Let's do that. Arsenal skipper Martin Ødegaard put on a hat-trick of assists for Norway last night in their 4-2 victory over Israel. One was a corner and 2 were really nice slipped passes in behind the defense. It shows you, doesn't it, that at a time where we've been quite critical of Martin Ødegaard and we've all been scratching our heads as to why his performances have dropped off, a lot of it is to do with what he has going on in front of him. Runners are so important. And not facing a low block obviously helps. And I don't think Norway did last night based on the highlights package that I saw. But it just serves people, doesn't it? A reminder of the fact that Martin Ødegaard in the right environment, in the right place, with the right things going on around him can still be a really creative force. And I think that for me, to see him do that, it's not that I look at it and I go, well, he's done it against Israel now. And so, Martin Ødegaard is back to his absolute brilliant best. And there's no reason to question his season or his upcoming performances or anything. I'm not of that mindset. Come on. But when I see a player struggle in the way that Martin Ødegaard has, when I see a player struggle for confidence, which I genuinely feel he has in recent times, to see them do something that sets them back on the right path, at least, I think is really refreshing. And it's really nice to see. And 3 assists. Okay, it's not 3 goals, but 3 assists. We talk a lot about him dropping off more in the assist department than the goals department. We talk about him being one of the only creative forces really in that Arsenal midfield, and the fact that he's dropped off in form. To see him go and do that on the international stage, albeit against a weaker opponent, it's still a good thing. It's still a positive. But notice some of the movement. Like one of them was from a corner. So, put the ball in the right area, trusting someone to go and attack it. And that's exactly what happened. But the other 2 were really nice, sort of accurate, perfectly weighted passes in behind a defensive line to release people in goal-scoring positions. And obviously they take the chances. And the thing with assists is that you can always look at the numbers and obsess over them and say, he's got X amount of assists or he's got Y amount of assists. It's only an assist if it ends up in the back of the net. And because of that reason, you are kind of semi-reliant on other people as well. Obviously, the better the quality of the chance you create, the higher the chance it ends up in the back of the net, the greater the chance that you get the assist registered to your name. But there's 2 sides to an assist. There's the pass itself, the chance creation itself, but then there's the finish as well. And thankfully for Martin Ødegaard, he got those finishes last night to put on that hat trick of assists. Still got a long way to go in terms of getting back to where we want him to be. Is it too little, too late? Some people will argue that, even if he does pick up form between now and the end of the season. But if he can help us through that Real Madrid tie, I'll be buzzing. And I'll be delighted. And look, he's capable of it, as we saw, and got a reminder of last night in that international game. Okay, time now to talk transfers. We're going to talk starting with Joan Garcia. Now, he's the Espanyol goalkeeper that Arsenal have been linked with for quite some time. It's said that he'd be available for around about 25 to 30 million quid. And I know that particular conversation has prompted a discussion within the fan base around whether or not we actually need to go and spend that type of money on a second choice goalkeeper. We do need a second choice goalkeeper that is capable. Now, Mikel Arteta isn't one to rotate his goalkeepers. Even when Aaron Ramsdale was there and we had two number ones, it was very much a number one that was holding down that position. And I can only remember Ramsdale coming in the games, that Raya was unavailable for, ineligible for against Brentford, if you remember, because of course he was on loan from them. So Mikel Arteta isn't one to change the goalkeeper. He isn't one to rotate the goalkeeper. And I would argue that the goalkeeping position is not the same as playing outfield. You don't suffer the same fatigue. You might suffer mental fatigue, but physically, I think it's a much less demanding position. And so if you play more games, I think that's probably okay. So the need to basically, have this second choice goalkeeper that can come in all the time, it's not as great as people make it out to be. However, if you suffer an injury to your goalkeeper and you end up having to rely on your number two for 3-4 months, that can make a massive difference to your season. So you got to find that balance between not committing too much of your budget to someone who, if all is well, isn't going to play, but also having someone who's good enough to come in and deputize in the event that you do lose your number one. So it's a really difficult, as I say, balance to find. Joan Garcia is very, very highly rated. I got to be honest, I haven't seen a lot of it. But my red flag in all of this is he's a young goalkeeper, up-and-coming goalkeeper, who I believe, based on what I've read and what I've heard, has got a really exciting career ahead of him. And I'm struggling to see why for Arsenal... No, actually, let me rephrase that. For Arsenal, I understand why it makes sense. Go and buy another very good, competent goalkeeper who can do a lot of the things that David Raya can, meaning that if he does need to come in, it doesn't really disrupt your playing style, your rhythm, your instruction. All of it is consistent because you've got someone that can come in, that can slot in really, really nicely. But if I'm Joan Garcia, why on God's green earth would I want to sign for Arsenal? Arsenal are a fantastic club, a huge club with a massive pull. And if I'm playing for Espanyol, of course, a club like Arsenal would turn my head. But as a goalkeeper, it's very, very different. The chances of you coming in and forcing your way into the side, because we see players do that a lot. We see players who we look at and go, he's making a move from X club to Y club. He's making a step up. It's a bigger team. There's going to be more at stake, more pressure, more spotlight. Great. That's what they want. And then we say, okay, but where do they fit into the starting 11? Well, with an outfield player, you look at them and you go, well, he might not be a starter from the off, but there's certainly the option for him to kind of push in to the team and make the place his own. With a goalkeeper, I think that's less likely. With a goalkeeper, I think that's harder to do, particularly when the manager, Mikel Arteta, and Inaki Kanya, the goalkeeping coach, are so big on David Raya. They waited a long time to bring him into the club. They managed to get that deal over the line. David Raya is performing impeccably well at the moment, has been all season. You can't take that away from him. The idea that Joan Garcia will come in and displace David Raya, I think, is a little bit far-fetched. And therefore, what's the appeal to Joan Garcia? And this brings me on nicely to the reports that we're sort of reading coming out of Spain that suggest that Atletico Madrid are interested in Joan Garcia. Now, Jan Oblak is a goalkeeper whose powers, I think, have waned in recent years. There was a time I might have said he's the best goalkeeper in the world. And I'm not saying he's bad or that he's dropped off dramatically, but I do think it's time for Atleti to begin their succession planning for that position. And Joan Garcia would be a perfect fit. Can you argue that Arsenal are a bigger club than Atletico Madrid, that the Premier League has a greater pull than Atletico Madrid? I think you can make that case. But at the same time, if you're going to join Arsenal to be a deputy, to be a backup, is that as appealing as going to a club like Atletico Madrid and being the number one, making it your position? You also get to stay in sunny Spain. So the links between Atleti and Joan Garcia, if indeed he is a player that we really want, they worry me and concern me a little bit, because I don't know how we come out on top in this battle. Unless we offer a hell of a lot more money, I don't understand how we convince Joan Garcia that our footballing project is better for him than the one at Atletico Madrid, where he's, in my opinion, got a much greater chance of becoming and establishing himself as the club's number one. So that's my worry with this. And that's why when I read this, I was a little bit like, financially, I think we can do it. We can compete. But in terms of the opportunities that we can give him, I don't think that we would be able to compete with a club like Atletico Madrid, who, as I say, I think will be looking at replacing Jan Oblak for the long term. So, yeah, interesting one that. Again, I'm not completely convinced on Joan Garcia just because I haven't seen enough of him. And also because there's a part of me that thinks when we need a striker, when we probably need another winger, when we probably need two midfielders, assuming that Partey and Jorginho leave, when I look at that, I think, do we really have 25 odd million quid to throw at a goalkeeper that's barely going to play? Is there, like, people say, well, maybe if he had a better second choice goalkeeper, Mikel Arteta, he'd use them more. Ramsdale was his number one. Like, he was obviously good enough in the eyes of Mikel Arteta to be the number one for a period of time. Did he drop off that dramatically that Mikel Arteta didn't even see him as someone that was worthy of coming in from time to time to give David Raya a breather, or just to keep the Englishman fresh? To me, it's not a Ramsdale thing. It's an Arteta thing. I don't think Arteta likes rotating in that position, as a lot of people don't. And that's why a lot of people argued that the whole two number ones thing wasn't going to work, because people said, yeah, look, you can rotate at centre-back, at centre-mid, at centre-forward, but to rotate in goal, it's a little bit strange, a little bit out there, and it's probably not going to work. And people were proved right in the end, because we couldn't hold on to both goalkeepers. We couldn't keep them both satisfied. And in the end, we cashed in on Aaron Ramsdale and let him go to Southampton. So, yeah, Joan Garcia, interesting one. Keep an eye on it. Let's see what comes of it in the summer. It sounds like Arsenal have been pursuing this player for an absolute age. But does Atletico Madrid coming into the equation just change that a little bit? I would argue it does. Let's talk about another summer transfer target, and we're going to stick to Spain. We're going to talk Martin Zubimendi right after this. According to multiple reports in Spain, Real Madrid are stepping up their interest in Martin Zubimendi. And this is a day after I sat here on a bonus episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast and told you that Real Madrid's pull is irresistible. Doesn't bode well then, does it, with this? So look, I listened to Tom Canton on the Gooner Talk a little bit this morning. I caught about 10, 15 minutes of the show. Go and check it out. It's a brilliant show. Brilliant way to start the day. All the latest Arsenal news, the Gooner Talk TV. Go and check it out. And I caught the Zubimendi section, and he said something along the lines of, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he said something along the lines of, if you're doubting whether Martin Zubimendi is good enough for Arsenal and you're questioning whether he's the right option, the fact that Real Madrid are said to be interested and have a serious interest, that should give us as fans peace of mind. That should give us confidence that we are barking up the right tree, if you like. And I disagree with that. I don't think that just because Real Madrid are said to be interested, it means he's the right fit for Arsenal. I think there's so many variables. I think that there's a lot of things that I look at Martin Zubimendi and I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about his physicality or lack of. I don't think he is physical enough to sit as a 6 in an Arsenal team that loves to push both its 8s on, that, plays as expansively as it does, of course, when everybody's fit and available. And so, yeah, I still have that concern, regardless of whether Real Madrid want him or not. We set up in a very particular way. And I've said this before about Zubimendi. The only way I think Zubimendi works in Arsenal's midfield is if we tweak the structure, is if we go to a double pivot, is if we do change it a little bit. And if we do that, then maybe it can work. But based on the way we play today, like the way we push Rice and Odegaard on and we sort of leave Partey to his own devices, I don't think you could do that with Zubimendi. I think it makes us really, really vulnerable on the transition. And I think there's a lot of Spanish football experts that would agree with that viewpoint. If he's a good fit for Real Madrid, fine. He's one of the upcoming stars in the Spanish national team setup. Obviously, didn't start ahead of Rodri. I think will, start ahead of Rodri maybe in the future, but isn't there yet. He's one of the Spanish stars. For Real Madrid to go and get him, it makes a lot of sense. But the issues that I've mentioned, the things that I worry about, I don't think they are as exposed in La Liga. And that's the difference. And that's why I say there are lots of variables. Just because Real Madrid want him doesn't mean that, A, they're going to get him, and B, that it makes him the perfect fit for Arsenal, of course. So, yeah, I'm still looking at this one, and I'm still, on the fence about it. If we're to believe what we were reading during the month of January, where it felt like the timing of the Zubimendi story was a little bit convenient, given that we were all sitting there frustrated and desperate to see the club go and do a bit more business in the transfer window just to bolster our options in attack. It felt like it was a bit of a message to say, look, we're not going to be able to do anything now, but we do recognize that we need to improve, and we do recognize that the summer's going to have to be a big one. So the Zubimendi story drops, and it sounded like Arsenal had made real progress on this. If they've made real progress on this, maybe we don't need to worry about this Real Madrid interest, if indeed you're of the persuasion that Martin Zubimendi is definitely the right solution for us. For me, I'm not there yet. Like, I'm not there with Zubimendi where I'm looking at him and I'm going, yep, fantastic. He's the one. Make sure you do it. It's him or nothing. It's him or bust. I don't feel that way about Martin Zubimendi. I can't help it. Maybe I will when he comes in. If he does come in, maybe he'll prove me wrong. Maybe he'll shut me up. I hope that if he does come to Arsenal, he does. But at this moment in time, I just don't feel that way about this potential signing. Rumble says David Ornstein said it was done. David Ornstein did not say it was done. That's a nonsense. Go and look up his tweet. He didn't say that the deal was done. Nobody said the deal was done. There's a lot of stories saying that Arsenal were confident that they could land him, blah, 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 blah. Some people kind of interpreted that as, well, it means that Jorginho and Partey are definitely going then. Rumble, find me the tweet. Send me the link to the tweet in this podcast where David Ornstein said the deal was completed, done. And I'll send you 50 quid. That's how confident I am that you're not going to find it. Nobody ever said it was done. There was talk about it being quite far down the progression line, and that, there was a confidence within the camp that they'll be able to get this deal over the line, but nobody said it was done. If you can find me the post, share it in the chat, and I'll eat humble pie. But you're not going to find it because David Ornstein didn't say it's completed or done. Anyway, Akis in the chat says, fully agree with you, Harry. What kind of CM do you want? Well, it all depends on what our plan is moving forward. If our plan is to stay with that kind of single number 6, then I want someone a bit more physical. If our plan is to change the shape a little bit, then I'm not opposed to the Zubimendi, but I would do my homework and look around and make sure there isn't anybody else that fits the bill for a couple of reasons. I think Zubimendi is going to cost a fair bit of money, obviously. People argue that for a player of the highest caliber, it's not a great deal of money, but we think it's going to be around about 60 odd million quid. He's going to want a big salary, obviously, to leave his hometown boyhood club to come to the Premier League. He'd be in part doing it because the money's here. And so, yeah, we'll have to pay a big salary. I don't know. Let's see. But I guess I'm not giving you a name because I haven't done the homework or the research, but my instinct tells me that if we're going to play with the single six, I need them to be more physically commanding. If we're going to tweak things and adjust things a little bit, then I don't mind us playing with him alongside maybe a Declan Rice, for instance, whose role might just adjust ever so slightly. We'll see. Here we go. Rumble says virtually done. Well, that's very different to done, isn't it? And I'm still waiting for the post, mate. Just send the post and stop making yourself look silly. Send the post in the live chat where David Ornstein said that it was done, and I promise I will send you 50 quid. Anyway, Malesi says the reporting was pretty much PR, to be honest, and was to calm people after a poor window. I've kind of alluded to that and touched on that. To be honest, an impression was created that it was a done deal. Okay, an impression was created. There was very, very deliberate wording used in that report to insinuate that the deal was close. And it might be close, but that's not the same as done, is it? You know, it's not the same as done. So, yeah. Okay, I'll take a couple of your questions before we wrap up on today's show. Just a quick recap of what we've been talking about. Mikel Arteta celebrates his 43rd birthday today. The quickest Arsenal manager to reach 100 Premier League wins, and the man with the most wins in his first 200 in charge in the club's history. Odegaard put on a hat-trick of assists for Norway against Israel last night. Is he on his way back to his best? Competition for Joan Garcia. Atletico Madrid are said to have entered the race for the Spanish goalkeeper, and Real Madrid are said to be looking to step up their interest in Martin Zubimendi, who we've just been debating could be on his way to Arsenal. Taylor Made says, do you know when we find out about the Real Madrid ballot results? I don't, mate, but a friend of mine sent me a screenshot of his one yesterday. So I don't know if it was yesterday. It might be. I'm not sure. You'd have to check on the club's website. But yeah, that's what I saw yesterday. I saw someone sharing it. So I don't know. Go check that out on the site. Rumble says I'm the one that looks silly, but he still hasn't produced what I've asked him to produce. So yeah, I mean, this is classic, isn't it? Argue with me, but don't actually provide the proof to what you're saying. What did I say? I said, Rumble says, I was on here in January wanting Arsenal fans to give the club praise for being proactive. You're the one that looks silly, mate. I said, if they have got deals lined up for the summer already, then good. It shows that they're being proactive. It shows that they're already thinking about the summer, which you want to hear. But you haven't given me the proof. He keeps saying I've given you the proof. Show me the David Ornstein tweet and I'll give you 100 quid. How about that? Will that make you go and find the tweet? 100 quid. There you go. We're not going to get it though, are we? Because it's always the way with these people. You argue. But when I ask you to bring the proof to the table, you don't want to do it. Anyway, I am going to just take a couple more comments and then I'm going to love you and leave you. Larry says, let's expect different and better players from the new sporting director. The new sporting director is a big thing because there is a good chance that targets change and adjust as we go into the summer. Maybe what was in line or in the pipeline based on sort of Edu's work previously and Jason Ato's work, maybe that's not the same as what maybe Andrea Berta is seeking to do. So we're going to have to wait and see. But look, I think you can say let's expect different and better players from the new sporting director. I don't think Edu done a bad job. Arsenal wouldn't be in a position where you're all expecting them to win the league if he had. The recruitment generally, particularly the big money recruitment, has been very good. Have there been a few misses along the way? Yeah, but there isn't a sporting director in the world that doesn't have misses in his recruitment record. So that doesn't really alarm me or concern me too much. I think to kind of say it in the tone of like, oh, well, Edu done a crap job and this guy's going to make things better, I think is a little bit disrespectful to the work that the Brazilian did. But of course, we all want a new sporting director to come in and give us new knowledge, give us something that we don't already have and help us. to kind of move that bit further forward. So yeah, Aaron says, can I just have the £100? Yeah, you can have it if you could find me the David Ornstein tweet that says that it was a done deal. Yeah, for sure. Cass says, I'm surprised Berta hasn't been announced yet, although it's a done deal. Yeah, me too. I haven't had any sort of indication as to when that announcement might come. I'm not concerned. I think it is done. I think it is just a matter of time. The contract maybe starts from a particular day. I wouldn't be surprised if you got the announcement at the start of the new month. Maybe that's the way they're wanting to do things. I don't know, but yeah, fingers crossed. Andrea Berta comes in and brings us just that fresh outlook and perspective that I think we need. And it's not to slag off anyone that's done the job previously. I just think that sometimes you need a new voice. Sometimes when you've got an issue, when you're looking at something, you need a fresh pair of eyes to come in and look at it. Like the amount of times, I remember sort of back in the day, once upon a time, I was an apprentice electrician. I wasn't a very good one, but I remember working with someone he'd wired something up and he couldn't figure out why the circuit wasn't working. He just couldn't figure it out for the life of him. And he was a far better electrician than me, far better electrician. But basically what happened was he got so tired and so frustrated and so, bored in a way with the job that he was on, that the very obvious, which was right in front of his face, he couldn't spot it. And it took me to come in the room and go, oh, the reason it's not working is because that is connected to that when it should be connected to that. And it was like, oh my God, how could I be so stupid? And that happens, right? Sometimes when you're obsessed over something and you're trying desperately to finish something and you're tired and you're stressed and, you feel like you're hitting a brick wall, which could be the case at the top of a football club where you feel like you're making progress and then you have a season like the season we've had this time. It can happen. Sometimes a fresh pair of eyes coming in can point out the real clear and obvious. And I think Andrea Berta might be able to do that. He might come in and say, look, Mikel, the approach has been great. The recruitment's been good generally. But where you've gone wrong, in my opinion, is here, here, and here. And Mikel might go, do you know what? I hadn't thought of that. I'm sure he has thought of it because he thinks of everything. He's an obsessive, which is a good thing. But I just wonder if that fresh pair of eyes might just help us not completely change direction, but just take a bit of a shortcut to essentially where we want to end up. That's how I see it. Anyway, gonna love you and leave you all. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. We'll be back on Thursday with another edition. Really, really appreciate the support, particularly during the international break where there isn't a great deal going on in terms of matches. I really appreciate you guys sticking with the show, supporting it. Remember to leave a like on the YouTube video if you haven't done so already. That really, really does help. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and if you're listening on audio, please do leave us a review. I will see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves and up the Arsenal. Goodbye.